Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Spring 2020 Virtual Nursing Symposium on a fantastic week where we're celebrating all nurses. Congratulations to all our nurses. Happy Nurses Week. As you heard the music, the times are a-changing. My name is Anthony Ferrante. I'm the president of the New York chapter, and I am pleased to turn this over to the coordinator and the chair of the nursing committee who has put together a fabulous program. Olga, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Olga Kagan, and I'm the co-chair of the nursing committee at the HIMSS New York State chapter, and also one of the directors on the board. Thank you, Anthony, who's our president. So I'll turn it back to him in a few minutes. And I also wanted to introduce Mary Joy Garcia-Dia, who is the president of the Philippine Nurses Association of America, and also a member of the New York State HIMSS chapter. And I'd like to just mention that our program's hashtags today are RN Be the Change, Nurses on LinkedIn, and Healthcare Innovation. Don't forget to tag us, as well as HIMSS New York State chapter and the PNAA. I'd like to next introduce quickly our planning committee, without whom this event wouldn't be possible. Ailina Chacoso, Mary Joy Garcia-Dia, Ninachka Bridges. Our moderators for today, Ellen Arigorat, Marian Connor, Kimberly Velez. Our chat facilitators, Kathleen McGraw, Susan Dillon. Our producer, Bill Duax, and our social media engagement is Valerie Servicki. I also would like to thank our board and our members for supporting this initiative. And at this time, I'd like to turn it back to Tony. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Fantastic. We'd also like you to take a good look at this slide because it allows you to become a member of our chapter and be able to participate in all of our future events. Take a quick look and look to sign up. Love to have you in the chapter. For those of us, some of the logistics that go on, if we run into any problems today, as you can see here on the slide, you can either redial in or re-establish the connection. You also have the ability to be able to click on the words where they can show up for you. And hey, enjoy this day. This is a fantastic program. And I'd like to introduce our partners in this. PNAA, the Filipino Nursing Association of America, headed up by Mary Joy Dia, and then our sponsor for today, Microsoft, stepping up to the plate to help support our nurses.
Thank you, Tony. At this time, I'd like to turn your attention to Mary Joy Garcia-Dia talk about our contact hours for today.
Good morning, everyone. Today's program awards 3.0 contact hours. In order for you to obtain full credit, you must attend the entire program, complete the post-test and evaluation. The Philippine Nurses Association of America Provider Unit is accredited as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by the American Nurses Credentialing Center's Commission on Accreditation, P0613. The planners and speakers have declared no relevant financial relationships with ineligible companies previously stated as conflict of interest. This presentation has no commercial support and is not a joint provider activity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Joy. I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about today's symposium. As nurses, we interface with technologies on a daily basis at the bedside, in leadership roles, and also as students. The unprecedented burden of the COVID-19 pandemic added additional stressors to nurses' work, and with technologies, increased workload and burnout. This symposium will focus on nurse well-being, leadership, and professional growth, and how they align with the delivery of the quadruple aim. Each session will focus on strategies to empower nurses as they navigate through the rapid changes of high-tech healthcare in the 21st century. Today's objectives is to examine tools that can empower nurses in self-care and foster well-being, to apply leadership strategies to facilitate smooth transitions and support nurses in a rapidly changing high-tech environment, and to explore different career pathways in nursing informatics. At this time, I'd like to introduce our first session moderator, Ellen Arigorat, who is a program director at the New York Presbyterian Hospital and is here to introduce our keynote speaker. Ellen, to you.
Good morning, everyone. As Olga has said, my name is Ellen Arigorat, and I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Phyllis Quinlan, who's been a registered nurse for over 40 years, and a published author and a certified executive and life coach, focusing on self-awareness, resilience, and personal effectiveness. She serves as an internal coach for Cohen Children's Medical Center. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Quinlan.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you so much. Okay. And I'm hoping I did that correct. Can somebody let me know that you can see my slides?
Looks
Yes,
good, Phyllis.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, another thank you to the HIMSS group and for the honor of being asked to speak to you this morning. I don't usually get an opportunity to speak to IT. I'm usually on the phone talking to IT and letting them help me. So this was really a nice change. I want to give a nice shout out to everyone here who's celebrating Mother's Day and of course Nurse Recognition Day. So let's just talk about these times that are changing and what is it that we need to be ready for those changes, because there's a tremendous amount of responsibility that comes with leading change. My objectives today are to identify the elements of value as it relates to your personal brand, and each one of you need to be considering what your personal brand is if you haven't already, and to explain the importance of trust in relationship building. So I needed to do a little homework about your organization, and I was really, thrilled to find out that, you are all about connection, engagement, and acceleration, and that you are dedicated to delivering trusted insights on how technology and innovation are going to shape the future. And this last line I was definitely thrilled to read. It's time to realize the full potential of personal connected health. And really when we, one of the silver linings that we found from our COVID experience really was the need for the real interconnectedness. And really it also mirrored to us where those gaps of interconnectedness are. And I really am thrilled to hear that your organization is dedicated to closing those gaps. So let's talk about the future and what the future holds. And also, really then focus on what it is that you need to tool up to be ready for that future. So you have partnered with the American Nurses Association back in March at your conference. And one of the big pieces of information that came out of that was that the COVID-19 pandemic really triggered a need for everyone to learn how to pivot and adapt. All right, we needed to learn how to adapt to new treatments, delivery options, and other environmental factors. But another key focus of the healthcare industry is developing new ways to support providers who are really taking on the front lines and taking care of the patients. So it is their hope, your joint hope, that digital tools can help with flexible scheduling, reducing duplication in workflow, and assisting in charting. And this is all terrific because, quite honestly, my role here is to speak to you about resilience and well-being. And while I can give you a lot of information around your personal commitment to building your resilience and therefore increasing your sense of well-being, if you don't have a healthy work environment, it's not going to last very long. These are two essential things: your personal commitment to building your resilience each and every day, but what you do takes away the distractions and the extraneous irritations around work environments that then can really pull the sand out from underneath the foundation of what you're trying to do personally. So this is wonderful, and you need to keep your eye on the ball as far as your commitment to creating healthier work environments as far as, seamless systems are concerned. The American Medical Association says as telehealth continues to be a popular modality for care delivery, there are many people that are really trying to stress the importance of making sure that we maximize access. So this to me comes down to nursing's essential quality, which is patient advocacy. And again, one of the things that was mirrored to us during the COVID response was that we do not have equity in access. And I am hoping that you are not only going to build programs around telemedicine and telehealth and things that can engage populations that are underserved, but I'm hoping that you're going to take a political stance in making sure that you lobby and work with organizations that are going to be responsible for the monies allocated to build the infrastructure to make sure that equity is something we can attain. So I want to bring your attention to a newsletter I found on LinkedIn. And I'm a little sensitive to this because I'm a senior citizen. So when we talk about embracing technology over the age of 50 and getting up to speed with our technical skills, this speaks to me and, of course, my baby boomer colleagues. So Americans up to the age of 64 are pretty much on board with technology. There's a concern, however, around older Americans, meaning over the age of 64. Now, it does say that that older population is lagging about 25% around the rest of the population in their ability to embrace technology. But I want you to understand there's a fiduciary responsibility about not just creating the technology, but in making sure that people are able to use it. Now, we know that the older population is going to be a significant percentage of our population going forward. They're already there. And we also know that our Gen Zs already make up about 25% of our population. So we want to make sure that we are reaching everybody, not just the people who are intuitively able to use technology, but that your programming, your white papers, your initiatives are very much centered around making sure that we are serving the older population who, are probably need a tremendous amount of support. But really, if they want to age in place, telemedicine and telehealth is really how that's going to happen. And even more importantly, how to keep the workforce, the older worker in the workforce, and hopefully closing the gap on those technology skills, because finding meaningful work is so important to resilience and mental health. So you also have another collaboration with the American Nurses Association, which I find extremely exciting. And this is your 2022 nurse pitch. Now, I am a nurse entrepreneur. I've had my company since 1994. That is another life, as well as having a full-time job with the Cohen Children's Medical Center as their internal coach. But what I love about this is it really is going to showcase forward thinkers and innovators who might be able to then pitch their ideas to venture capitalists who can then support this. If you are one of these folks, keep in mind that part of the mindset you need to develop, if you are going to engage in business, you need to be a person who is a business person who happens to be a nurse, and not a nurse who happens to be a business person. If you start thinking like a nurse and trying to make that match with business, you're going to find it won't align. You have to study the business aspect of business as if it was another specialty within nursing in order to be successful as a nurse entrepreneur. So one of the things that absolutely is necessary for entrepreneurship and for going forward in the 21st century is to have a real clear sense of who you are. So are you a thought leader? Are you a disruptor? Or are you a futurist? And it's really important that you know this about yourself, because when you are explaining who you are and what you do to people, you need to be very clear so that they can wrap their mind around it and then figure out ways either to benefit from what you're offering, align with you, or find a way to support it. So I'm hoping that most of you know Jane McGonigal's work. And if you don't, she is one of the thought leaders and disruptors and futurists in the gaming industry. And she is now using gaming to build hope and resilience. So I'm hoping if you don't know about her, you will commit to learning a little bit about her. She's got a lot of research going with psychology and neuroscience. And what she does with gaming is she plays out the what if scenarios. Now think about this. Instead of having to, as we did in the early days of COVID, write the book on how to deal with COVID as we were doing it. For instance, we were kind of building the plane as we were flying it. What she's doing is using gaming to do simulations around different scenarios that can roll up to the emergency department, different scenarios around staffing. We could use it for safety OR gas evacuation, school nursing simulations, hospital operations, climate change, human migration, all of this. And what she really is trying to get you to embrace is a positive construct about daydreaming. She wants you to daydream and daydream big. Now, I think that this is essential for resilience and for mental health because it speaks to one of the most important interventions around stress first aid as put forth by Dr. Patricia Watson, who is a leading specialist in post-traumatic stress. And she talks about needing to duck and cover, which really talks about safety. One of the things about keeping yourself and your staff and your organization safe is to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And there's no better way to be able to do that, to increase your sense of confidence and competence, than using these gaming tools going forward to work out different scenarios. And what she calls this is urgent optimism. Now, I love this line because she says, despite the reality of almost guaranteed failure in a game, gamers come back again and again, resolved to do better and to win. Okay, this is at the heart of urgent optimism. It's really a way of saying that you understand that failure is part of the journey and that failure, it really is stepping stones to ultimately having success. So she wants you to lean in. She wants you to fail big in order to be able to succeed greatly. So with all of this that's kind of, in the ether around what your specialty is all about, I bring to you the words of Jennifer Freeman, who says you are far too smart to be the only thing standing in your way. You have so much work to do. Your responsibility is great. And quite honestly, being a baby boomer, I'm depending on you. I'm really depending on you to give it your best, to make sure that access is there, that equity is there, that ease of use is there, and that it is there for everyone. And I'm counting on your spirit as well as your brains to make that happen. But you need to be prepared for what's coming because what's coming is big. So let's reimagine healthcare. And what is it going to take for you to be successful in this? The first thing is that you're going to have to understand the difference between endurance and resilience. Okay, so we do endurance well. We know how to hunker down. We know how to get through the Department of Health survey, the Joint Commission survey, the magnet surveys. Who else is walking in? Hi, I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. That's really going to disrupt our day and put us through our paces. We know how to hunker down during weather emergencies. And certainly we knew in the first days of COVID how to hunker down and grind it through. The problem is that we're so good at endurance, is that we think that's, and in the moment it does work, but we think that's the way to live our lives, and it's not. Endurance is about survival, and I don't want you to survive your life. I want you to thrive in your life. So really you have to understand that endurance is necessary at times, but it is not a lifestyle. It's certainly not the coping mechanism that you want to be able to use time and time again in your professional life or in your personal life. Rather, you need to embrace the whole idea of resilience, which really is the ability to withstand stress and challenges while remaining centered. So resilience is not just the ability to take a punch. Resilience is the ability to learn from the event and take from it what you need to be that much more ready for the next thing that's coming. And there's always something else coming. So I call resilience optimal coping. Okay, so it's not just the ability to bounce back. It's the ability to lean in and learn so that you have a good understanding of where you're strong and you can find the personal courage and heart to lean into where you still need to do some work so that you are that much stronger for the next challenge. I call what we've been going through boot camp moments. So, you know, we all have boot camp moments in our lives, and certainly everything that our COVID response, you know, threw in our face is certainly a boot camp moment. You may have other boot camp moments. You may not have gotten a promotion that you thought you deserved. You may, you know, wanted to get into a certain school, but you're going to get into school, but it's not the one that was in your heart. It's, you know, it's a learning moment. You know, perhaps there's a relationship in your life that is no longer, or it is breaking down and you know it, or maybe there's a medical issue that's happening. Whatever it is, the universe serves up these boot camp moments, just like in the military. Okay, so the boot camp moments in the military are there to show you where you're strong, but more importantly, it's meant to show you where you still need to do a little work and to offer you the opportunity to do the work so that you can become that much stronger. Now, this is a choice. It's kind of like the universe's classroom. The universe will show you over and over, or give you opportunities over and over again to lean in and do the work needed to be that much more prepared for life and its challenges, and be that much more ready to present yourself in the authentic way that you want to be seen. If you don't accept the invitation to the class, though, that's okay. You can take a pass on the class, but I guarantee you the universe will create another opportunity for you to lean in until you do. So what's really important to understand with these boot camp moments is that it's vital that you tool up with life skills and personal skills, and that you don't toughen up. Now, I came out of nursing school in the 70s. So, you know, when I first started practicing, I don't think I was at work, you know, as a novice nurse for maybe 1 or 2 weeks before somebody, and I started in a critical care area, before somebody said to me, listen, you better toughen up or you're never going to make it. Now, I know those words were meant as words of support. I know they were benevolent. I know they were someone sharing insights into what it's going to take to have a 40+ year nursing career. But it was old thinking, and it was old thinking around us denying our humanism, that we thought ourselves as, you know, we could acknowledge that we are indeed among the most generous people on the planet, but we're just not entitled to the same empathy and compassion that we show our patients. This is old thinking. We are no longer going to embrace suck it up, buttercup. Okay, we know now that, you know, the last thing we want to do is toughen up, because in the toughening up, we move out of our compassionate nature. We move out of our heart center energy, and we move into our head, and we become academic. When we close down our compassionate nature because it's just too tough or hard to stay compassionate, we go academic and we become somewhat robotic. We still give world-class care. We still hit all the benchmarks, but we lose that peace and spark that allows us to stay connected and relatable. So I'm asking you, please resist the urge to toughen up with every boot camp moment. Rather, what I want you to do is allow those moments to humble you. Allow those moments to really kind of say, all right, I have to find the courage to stop saying something or engaging in a habitual behavior that I am going to regret in about 15 minutes. I need to lean in to those pieces of my emotional intelligence that are actually going to help me represent myself authentically and genuinely, regardless of what circumstances are around me. And if you can find the heart and the courage and the energy to do that, it should soften you. It should humble you. It should really drive home how difficult it is to be a healthcare professional in the 21st century. And in that discovery, in that acknowledgement, there should be a soft spot in your heart. And this is where empathy and compassion comes from. Understanding that the journey is hard, and that it's even more hard to find the courage to lean into the journey and to allow that to soften you so that you can become far more relatable. You see, when these boot camp moments happen, these are opportunities to increase our sense of connection and humanity and to increase the interpersonal connection between all of us, so that, you know, I work at the Children's Medical Center, and thank you, I have never lost a child. But when I have to work with a parent who has lost a child, I have to call upon something in my life. And in my life, I have known sudden catastrophic loss. And if I can lean into that moment, as difficult as it is, then I can be of service to a parent that is just experiencing a catastrophic loss. Our experiences may not be the same, but the empathy and the energy and the humanity around the experience is the same, which then makes you far more relatable and authentic, not just to yourself, but to the people you serve, and certainly your colleagues and your profession. So these boot camp moments are really meant to make you that much more tender-hearted, not make you toughen up. And what we know now is really, you know, I'm an applied positive psychologist, and, you know, what we know now is that if we lean into these boot camp moments, that we can take potentially post-traumatic situations that could leave us stressed and depleted, and we can then convert those into post-traumatic growth opportunities where we come out of the situation truly transformed, so that we move away from a comfort zone into a zone of fear. And, you know, that takes a tremendous amount of courage and commitment to be able to let go of the side of the pool, you know, and just swim to the unknown. I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to go find out. And then you get into a learning zone and you start to learn new resilience skills. You start to lean in to your emotional intelligence. You start to become that much more self-aware, understanding your triggers, and then learning new skills around how to manage those triggers so that you're not self-sabotaging and depleting your own sense of energy, joy, and mission each and every time you confront a challenge. And then you go from that learning zone into a growth zone. And this is where you become transformed. You honestly will not be the same person any longer. You'll be new and improved, if you will, but you will be very different. You will navigate your world differently. You will navigate your career differently. And there comes with this newly found sense of competence and confidence, a sense of peace, which is true resilience. So strength doesn't come from what you can do. Strength comes from overcoming the things that terrified you. So I just want to take a page from our colleagues at the Harvard Business Review. And quite honestly, if you're not reading the Harvard Business Review, I'd like you to change that behavior. It costs you about $100 a month to get this publication. And I have yet to read a copy or an edition of the Harvard Business Review where there isn't something that pertains to what I do in nursing or coaching. So back in 2016, the Harvard Business Review put out something called the Elements of the Value Pyramid. And really, this was an article directed at people who, let's just say, makes widgets. And they say that if you wanted to put a product out, whether it was a tangible product or yourself as a product, these are the steps that you needed to take to ensure that people perceived it as of value. Now, I'm sure you can see it pretty much resembles Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the foundation of anything of value is, number one, it needs to function. If it doesn't function, what good is it? Next thing is there has to be an emotional connection to it. I just love my new widget. Oh, this just makes me feel like I'm on the cutting edge. This is great. I'm enjoying my new widget. Then all of a sudden it's life-changing. So, you know, I don't know what I did before I had my widget. Oh my God, you know, I don't know how I organized my time. This is just so much easier for me to take care of all the plates that are in the air. It's really something. And then finally, the top of the pyramid is when the world is better because of the widget, that it's not just the individual who benefits from the value of the widget. Society in itself is transformed. So let's take that another step. And I want to, again, build on this, okay? I want you to think in terms of your value. your value as a leader, your value as a professional. And let's just go through these steps again from the Harvard Business Review. If you're not functional, meaning if you're not easy to work with, nobody will want to work with you. And maybe people will have to work with you, but the work will be arduous, it will be slow, it will be grinding, and you'll see people putting it off or not giving it their best effort. If you are someone who can evoke an emotion when you partner with someone, wow, I really like working with him or her. I really think that, every time I sit and collaborate with whomever, I just feel uplifted. They're dynamic, they're funny, they're this, they're that. There's an emotional connection to the partnership that increases the value of working with that person. And then you find out over time, wow, I never realized just how bright they were. I never realized just how much they've gone through in their life, and they're so generous with their life lessons and their wisdom that, I have to honestly say that being on this committee or being involved in this project has really changed me, and for the better in how I view myself and my work. And then finally, you realize that you created something as a team, that you were part of creating something that shifted the profession, that created value, not just for yourself, not just for your team, but for your patients at large. This is what I mean about the value pyramid and leadership. You first have to be easy to work with. People have to be inspired and feel something to work with you. The work that you do together has to shape people in a new and different way. And then finally, you have to be able to show people how what they do collectively can influence the world. So a lot of people ask me, how can I be successful? And I honestly don't have an answer for you. But this much I know, that if you say to yourself each and every day, who was I of value to today? I'm driving home from work. Who was I of value to today? Who did I make a relationship with? Was I of value to a colleague? Was I of value to my boss? Was I of value to my department or my profession? If you keep thinking in terms of how you contributed value to the relationships in your life, you cannot help but be successful. It's all about collaboration, and nothing drove this home more than COVID. I have been studying, again, a nurse for over 40 years, and we all talk about the interprofessional collaboration, and, we have to see our support services as equal partners and blah, 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 blah. But when COVID hit, boy, it became apparent that this is actually what needs to happen. And I am asking you, please, to make sure that you don't lose those senses of connection, that you don't lose the ability to understand that everybody's role is valuable, and that you work on a very level playing field so that everybody's contribution is important to the end game. So the new competency for the 21st century is managing persistent uncertainty. Managing persistent uncertainty, which is the most tormenting thing there is. Nobody likes change, and nobody likes change they can't see coming. So how are you going to manage persistent uncertainty? Well, one day at a time, but you cannot do it alone. You have to do it as a team. So you have to figure out what your comfort zone is and get out of it. Make a commitment to learn other things, new things, volunteer. And as I've said before, fail and fail and fail big until you're successful. You're going to have to learn how to really collaborate, not just partner, but really try to find the synergy in the team. All right. Everybody's individual contribution is amazing, but what you do together and what you accomplish together is incredible. You're going to have to find how to negotiate, not compromise. All right. Compromise, it's a negative thing. When you think of the word compromising, you already think of losing something. I'm going to have to give up something. I'm going to have to cave in on something. But when you think of negotiations, you come to the negotiation table already saying, I have something that's extremely important to me, and I'm not leaving the table until I get it. And so's the other guy. So that at least if you agree to agree on one thing that's important to one partner and one thing that's important to the other, then you build the foundation of being able to come back to negotiate another day. If you start to think from the energy of compromise, nobody wants to work with you because it's a lose. It's a lose-lose as opposed to a win-win. And never forget the value of optimism. Okay, so really just keep trying, and know that you're one failure away from success. So these are the 4 competencies of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, which are your personal competencies, and then social awareness and relationship management, which are your social competencies. Now, a lot of people like to think, well, you know, I'm really good at the social stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to push back on that. I'm just going to say maybe not so much, because this is linear. Unless you go through self-awareness and self-management first, then you really don't have the challenges that create those soft spots, that create the tenderness that I was talking about, that allows you to become that much more authentic and therefore that much more relatable in order to be successful at the social competencies of emotional intelligence. And really, all we're saying here is to manage your emotions well first in yourself and then in your relationships. And this is an if only kind of statement for me. If only I could get this right, boy, how much easier life would be. So it starts with knowing your triggers. And, you know, when you're talking about your self-awareness, you really have to understand what is it that triggers you. And it's a lot of things. And it's probably a lot of things that are from earlier in your life. But you need to understand that, you know, you're going to have to take the self-management steps once you are aware of those triggers. It's not enough to say, yeah, I know. That you have to be able to say, yeah, I know, and I'm going to do something about it. So how many times I say to people, you're not sleeping, you're not doing this, you're not eating right, you're not engaging in some exercise. I know. Well, then how can I help you build your resilience? Because we already decided what are those things that probably will work better for you from a self-management point of view. So it's not okay just to stop at the I know self-awareness portion of emotional intelligence. You have to find the courage and the discipline to lean into the self-management pieces that are needed to build emotional self-control, to anchor your sense of trustworthiness with your team. People have to have an expectation of a consistent leadership product from you day in and day out. There's no such thing as, I don't know how I feel today. Once my boss gets in and I find out how my boss feels, then I'll let you know how I feel. That is unacceptable. You have to deliver a consistent product. You have to be conscientious and adaptable, have this great sense of optimism, and certainly keep yourself energetic so that you can start making sure that you inspire people from one initiative to another. You have to understand that relationships are the currency of the workplace. You're going to live and die by the quality of the relationships you have, not only in your personal life, but in your professional life. So again, the question to ask is, you know, how have I been of value to someone? The other question to ask yourself is, what relationship did I anchor today? What relationship did I initiate today? Because we're going to have to partner in a couple of weeks. What relationship did I do some very much needed fence mending on? So these are the competencies for social awareness. Remember, social awareness has to do with the one-on-one. So your ability to develop others, your ability to inspire, your ability to communicate. You need to know how to manage conflict, hopefully from a negotiation standpoint and not a compromise standpoint. You have to learn how to build those bonds so people understand that kind of synergy. And then, of course, teamwork and collaboration. You deal in the business of change. And if you don't anchor your ability to manage change, then you have to rethink what you're doing, because change is at the forefront of what you do and what you have committed to as a specialty. The other piece here is that forget power. Power is it's an old word. It's a word that just conjures up nausea in most people. If you think that power can help you influence change, you're wrong. It's influence. Influence is far more powerful than power will ever be. When you're able to speak to someone and relate to someone and inspire them and influence them on a direction that they hadn't thought about before, but are now somewhat intrigued and curious and willing to try, that's when you have become powerful and a true change catalyst. When you're building your relationship, which is all about teamwork, again, influence, change catalyst, conflict management, teamwork, inspirational leadership, and then communicate, communicate, and communicate. And I know that you're all techie folks, and I'm just going to ask you, please don't forget the art of speaking to a person and not just texting someone or chatting with someone, but actually showing up and being there and let somebody find you so they can relate to you so that the communication is not lost. This is going to take trust. Trust is at the heart of every relationship. And if you want to build trust, you're going to have to build some psychological safety. People have to be able to speak up. They have to have the psychological safety of being able to fail in order to succeed. So this becomes another fiduciary responsibility around leadership in the 21st century. And if you need to know any more about psychological safety, I refer you to Amy Edmondson, who is really at the forefront of quality and this whole concept. You really need to understand that the absence of trust, the absence of psychological safety, and the absence of trust undermines everything to do with teams. These are the 5 dysfunctions of a team as put forth by Patrick Lencioni, and you can see that trust is at the base of it. If you don't have trust, all right, then there is no teamwork. It all crumbles from there. If you want some more convincing, I really refer you to Stephen Covey's work on the speed of trust. And he talks about trust being the hidden variable for success. And he said the old paradigm used to be that if we had a great strategic initiative and we executed it really well, then our results would be exactly what we wanted. And we know now that that's not so. You need a great strategic initiative. You need to execute it exquisitely, but you need to have trust within that team in order to get the results that you desire. Please don't confuse doing with achieving. Okay, doing is just checking off what you need to do. It's the stuff that needs to get off your desk. It's the stuff in your email. It's the operations. Achieving a goal is creating a healthy work environment. Achieving a goal is creating something that is not just accessible, but easy to navigate. Keep your eye on not just the doing of the stuff, but making sure you're actually achieving the goals that are greater than the individual doings. Don't confuse your job with your role. What you do is transactional. We all have to do the work, and that is transactional. But to lead, you lead people, not work. And to lead people, you need to have the qualities of a transformational leader, which starts with your ability to be soft, with your ability to be relatable, with your ability to understand and be able to see the struggles that your team is having and to be that much more authentic and available to them so that you can lead them through it. Remember that transactional leaders create reputations, but transformational leaders leave legacies. That's what you want to do. You want to leave a legacy, something that the next generation can admire, learn from, and build on. So I have to say, when I was doing my research on this organization, I was pretty impressed that the Pope gave you a message. That's a new one for me. But what His Holiness shared is that he's trusting that the discussions, deliberations of these days, meaning that convention, will draw attention to the right of all, especially the poor and the most vulnerable, to have access to essential and effective health care. This is your mission. This is your task. This is what your legacy can be built on. But if you don't have the resilience inside of you, if you don't have the courage to lean in and make sure that you are learning from each and every challenge, that you are creating the psychological safety around being able to fail as a part of success, and to make sure that you are of value to those you serve, you're not going to make this goal. So I leave you with a reading list. I leave you with Stephen Covey's book of The Speed of Trust, Jim Collins's book, Good to Great and Great by Choice, Pema Chodron, a Buddhist nun, talking about how to get out of your own way and getting unstuck, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and the great works of Amy Edmondson on fearless organizations and teaming, psychological safety. And then finally, if you haven't read Brené Brown, Atlas of the Heart, it's a great way to start to build resilience, because she talks about the one thing we never want to talk about as professional caregivers. She talks about emotion, and she really starts to peel back the layers of the onion on us facing our emotions and owning them. So thank you again for this opportunity. Again, I was just thrilled to be invited, and I do want you to know that this senior citizen is on social media. I have over 12,000 followers on Twitter and over 6,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm really inviting you to be one of them. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I guess we're opening this for questions now.
Yes, Ellen, I'd like to invite Ellen to moderate the session.
Yes. Thank you, Phyllis, for the wonderful keynote. If there are any one who has questions for Phyllis, either put it through chat or raise your hand, and we'll get your questions to Dr. Quinlan. We did have one thing in the chat from Diane Bautista regarding the list of triggers, and is there a list of triggers, and where can we reflect and then pick and choose the triggers?
So there's no, yeah, that's a great question, but there's no library of triggers. What that really needs is for you to be quiet and introspective. I think we all know pretty much, you know, what's going to get our goat, what is going to start the ball rolling on us saying something or doing something that we're going to regret in the next 15 minutes. You know, so, you know, whether you're aggravated with somebody, you know, you standing on a long line does it to you. Some poor soul comes up to you and says, you know, I have a VIP patient, and you want to say all my patients are VIPs because your social justice trigger just got pushed. You know, you have to know these things about yourself that really fuel you to not represent yourself in the way that you want, that fuel you to engage in habitual behaviors that are no longer serving you. And it's a real personal thing. There's no list out there that's generic. There's a lot of things that are common, but there's no list out there for genetic, you know, that's genetic. You really have to lean in and be quiet with yourself and figure that out.
We have one question from Joe DeCerrito. Let me just, can you touch on any programs or techniques that Northwell has implemented, such as retooling up?
You know, so I know that they have offered a lot of emotional intelligence training, either through the IFN or through CLI. To me, you cannot get enough emotional intelligence training. I think even though I am the internal coach for Cohen Children's Medical Center, you can find me on Global. I am happy to work with any of you to try to increase your sense of emotional intelligence and therefore your resilience. But any of the books that I recommended, you know, certainly will get you going on a path to being that much more aware of the need for you to let go of those habitual behaviors and perhaps some mindsets that served you well to get you where you are, but are not going to be good enough for you to go forward the way you want to. So it's like putting down hand tools and embracing, you know, electric tools. It's a game changer to be able to do that. You're on mute, Ellen?
I'm muted, sorry. What are some of the techniques or advice to forgive yourself after you've done habitual behaviors that no longer serve you?
What a great question. Okay, so you need to understand that you are a product of your past, and many of us are where we are because we have either found a way to navigate some of the things that we've been through, certainly survive some of the things that we've been through, and to succeed despite some of the things that we've been through. So what's to forgive? All right. I mean, those are all very, very wonderful character strengths to be able to do that. It's not so much as forgiveness as actually making peace with yourself to say, okay, I honor everything I am right now, but I have to start looking for new and better tools, different tools, because I very much want to lean into the 21st century. I need to be ready for it. And I am blessing the past, and then really looking forward to working and learning, reading, studying about how I can improve myself and tool up for the future.
And then a follow-up question from Mindy Lawrence. How do you do damage control after those moments?
Own it. Own it. Don't sidestep it. Don't say, yeah, but, and try to explain your way out of it or condone it. Own it. Go up to the person, apologize. And the only way your apology is going to land soundly is if your behavior changes going forward. You have to understand that. It's kind of like people saying, I know, I know, I know. If you're apologizing and repeating the offense and apologizing some more, you lose your trustworthiness, you lose your credibility. Apologies have to be followed by changes in behavior.
I have another question. You mentioned about post-traumatic growth in your presentation. This is kind of the first time I've heard about it. Can you say more about that concept?
Sure. So, it's a fairly new concept, and it comes out of the School of Positive Psychology, which is out of the University of Pennsylvania, and Dr. Martin Seligman's work. And, what the practitioners of applied positive psychology are looking to do is to understand that, by and large, we are not broken, and there's nothing out there that is breaking us. If anything, it's a softening or a cracking to allow more strength to come through. So, I remember doing Zoom peer support groups during COVID, and one nurse in particular stands out, and she just stared, she looked at me, she was on Zoom, and she was a couple of years younger than me, and she's like, Phyllis, ask anybody. I am scared of my own shadow. I am scared of my own shadow. I'm terrified. Now, the pediatric nurses at Cohen were being deployed to take care of adult and geriatric patients. So it was like COVID response on steroids. And when I circled back with her a couple of months later to see how she was doing, because she got some just-in-time training and a lot of support, I said to her, well, how are you doing? She says, well, I thought I was going to retire and run like hell. She says, but I've decided to stay, and now I'm orienting the new nurses on the unit. She leaned into the fear, and she found the strength inside of her. And probably if you ask everybody who went through COVID, they're going to tell you, I'm stronger than I ever thought I could be. That's post-traumatic growth, as opposed to COVID broke me.
Okay, the chat is going. Ian just made a comment that sometimes it is challenging to be emotionally intelligent when you are surrounded with so many negatives around you.
Mm-hmm. So it's, you can't live a positive life when you are around negative people. Okay, so you have to understand that vampires are real, and that there are such things as energy vampires. And these are the people that you could be having a decent day. You go in the back to try to have a cup of coffee, and you sit down and you're sitting knowingly or unknowingly next to or in the room with that energy vampire, and they just suck all the joy, the good, the energy, the positive, the light right out of the moment. And by the time your coffee is over, you're like, I got to go home because I'm just depleted. Now you have these energy vampires in your personal lives. You know how to stay away from them, but you have to figure out a way to be able to work with the energy vampires, and that's all you do. You don't have coffee with them. You don't have lunch with them. And for crying out loud, don't talk about your personal life with them, because they'll suck all the joy out of that too. So staying positive is your responsibility, and you can't give your energy to people who literally will suck you dry.
Okay, another question. What are some of your advice on reducing intergenerational tensions in all facets of life? It could be via professional organizations, workplace, personal life.
You know, that's such a great question, because when I start teaching emotional intelligence, the first program that I teach is Intergeneration, Can't We All Just Get Along? And what I do is, you know, prior to being a nurse, I was a psychiatric social worker, and I have a degree in sociology. And I take the intergenerational temperament mindset and realities, and I juxtaposition them against the social events that were happening at the time. So what made a baby boomer? What social events made a Generation X, a millennium, a Gen Z, a Gen Z? And I think the more we know about one another, just like any other unconscious bias, if you just start leaning into the other person, you're going to find you have more in common than you have, you know, gaps.
Okay, we have one last question. It's from Ian. Is numbing yourself or being careless, be careless, be part of emotional intelligence, or is it getting past that, accepting the things that you have no control, the signals you're on your way to growth?
You know, I understand that numb is nice every now and then, but numb is a highway to burnout. And numb is you shutting down your compassionate nature and moving into your head so that you can still do what you're doing it, but you're doing it from a very robotic academic standpoint, and that you are just not going to get involved. Well, we are by definition people who need people. You have to find the strength to stay in your compassionate nature. You have to put healthy boundaries around you. You certainly have to stay away from the energy vampires. But numb is never an option, because once you choose numb, you're not far from choosing isolation, which is the most dangerous coping skill a healthcare provider can choose, because burnout is right next door.
Well, thank you, Phyllis, for answering the questions that we have. As a reminder, you can connect with Phyllis on LinkedIn. Valerie, I'll be putting in her information and how you can connect, as well as her website.
And global. Please don't hesitate
globally
to reach out to me on global. Yes.
I guess we have 3 more minutes. One more question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What is the best way to motivate people to become proactive in advocating for themselves and being active in the political realm?
You know, I've been in education forever, and the best way to motivate people is through role modeling. You know, when they see you achieving, when they see you doing, when they see you having fun, you know, it's undeniable that you may want a piece of that. You know, how do I get a cupful of that? You know, and I think the role modeling and then being open about what you're doing. You know, so you know, I think I don't want to say, well, it might inspire, but I think it creates a sense of curiosity about, well, if Phyllis can have 12,000 followers on Twitter and all these people on Instagram and whatever, and she is certainly a senior citizen, what can I do? How can I become an influencer? How can I become a thought leader? You know, I can't recommend LinkedIn enough. I have over 10,000 followers and connections on LinkedIn. And it is, if you're not going to get involved in social media, I would rethink it. The one platform you should be on is the most professional and tightly regulated platform, and that is LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, thank you for that wonderful session. So we're going to be having a jam-packed session. Let's give a round of applause for Phyllis as our keynote speaker for today. And thank you. Seeing if anybody else has their hand raised, or make sure you follow her on LinkedIn. I posted the website, her Twitter.
Instagram. I have videos on Instagram that might be a source of a resource for you. So it's Phyllis Quinlan Official on Instagram.
I'll be posting that one as well.
Okay.
Okay. And thank you.
So thank you again for the invitation. Happy Nurses Week and happy Mother's Day.
Okay. So for the next session,